Have you ever noticed that the people who think the most often smile the least, not because they are ungrateful, not because their life is empty, not because they cannot see beauty in the world, but because their mind never simply touches life and lets it pass? A deep thinker does not just hear a sentence, he dissects it. He does not just enter a room, he feels the mood, the tension, the hidden meanings, the quiet sadness in someone's eyes. He does not just experience a happy moment, he asks why it feels temporary. He wonders how long it will last. He already feels the ending while everyone else is still enjoying the beginning. This is why deep thinkers struggle to be happy. Their greatest gift becomes their heaviest burden. The same mind that can understand life deeply can also make life unbearable. The same awareness that helps them see truth also prevents them from living peacefully inside illusion. And the tragedy is that happiness for many people depends on not thinking too deeply. For most people, happiness is simple. They wake up, follow the routine, chase small goals, enjoy distractions, laugh at simple jokes, and move forward without questioning every layer of existence. But a deep thinker is different. His mind is not satisfied with the surface. He wants meaning. He wants truth. He wants to understand why people act the way they do, why love changes, why time disappears, why success feels empty, why everyone seems to be pretending, and why even the most beautiful moments carry a quiet sadness underneath them. And this constant search for meaning can slowly turn against him, because when you think deeply about happiness, you begin to notice something uncomfortable. Happiness is fragile. It depends on conditions. It depends on health, money, love, timing, memory, hope, and the temporary silence of fear. One small event can destroy it. One message, one loss, one betrayal, one diagnosis, one failure, one moment of truth, and suddenly the happiness you thought was real begins to collapse. A deep thinker sees this. He sees the temporary nature of everything. He sees that every relationship carries the possibility of goodbye. Every success carries the fear of losing it. Every childhood becomes memory. Every body grows older. Every dream, even when achieved, creates another emptiness. And because he sees too much, he cannot relax inside the simple version of life. This is not overthinking in the ordinary sense. It is not just worrying too much. It is a deeper psychological pattern. Deep thinkers often live with intense self-awareness. They observe their own emotions while having them. They analyze their own joy while trying to feel it. They question their own desires while chasing them. Even when they are happy, another part of the mind stands apart and asks, is this real? Will this last? Why do I still feel incomplete? That question is the beginning of the struggle. Because happiness often requires surrender. It requires entering the moment without judging it. It requires laughing without asking why laughter exists. It requires loving without measuring the danger of loss. It requires being present without mentally escaping into analysis. But deep thinkers are rarely fully present. Their body may be in the room, but their mind is somewhere behind the room, studying themselves inside the room, studying why the room feels strange. They do not just live, they watch themselves living, and this creates distance, a strange distance between the person and the moment. The deep thinker may sit with friends, surrounded by laughter, but inside he feels like an observer behind glass. Everyone else seems to belong naturally. Everyone else seems able to participate without effort. But he feels separated by awareness. He notices the performance in conversation. He notices how people hide pain behind humor. He notices how quickly attention moves from one topic to another. He notices the loneliness underneath social life. And then he wonders, why can't I just be normal? That question hurts more than people realize, because deep thinkers often blame themselves for not being easily happy. They look at others and think, why do they seem satisfied with things that feel shallow to me? Why can they enjoy life without needing answers? Why do I feel heavy when nothing is wrong? This creates guilt. They may have food, shelter, family, success, opportunities, yet still feel an emptiness they cannot explain. And because they cannot explain it, they feel ashamed of it. But the problem is not that they are broken. The problem is that deep awareness changes the way happiness works. A shallow happiness comes from distraction. A deeper happiness must come from meaning, and meaning is harder to find. It cannot be bought quickly. It cannot be forced through entertainment. It cannot be created by pretending everything is fine. A deep thinker cannot survive for long on surface pleasures alone. He may enjoy them for a moment, but soon the mind returns and asks, what is the point of this? What does this really mean? Is this enough? This is why deep thinkers often feel restless, even when life looks good from the outside. They may achieve things that others admire, but achievement does not silence the deeper hunger. They may receive praise, but praise feels temporary. They may be loved, but they still fear being misunderstood. They may have comfort, but comfort does not answer the questions that keep them awake at night. And one of the most painful things about being a deep thinker is that you often understand people more deeply than they understand you. You can see why someone is defensive. You can sense why they avoid certain subjects. You can understand the wound behind their anger. You can forgive things before people even explain them. But when you try to express your own inner world, people may call you dramatic, negative, too sensitive, too serious, or too complicated. They tell you to stop thinking so much, as if the mind has an off switch. They say, just enjoy life, as if enjoyment is simple when your mind keeps pulling back the curtain. So the deep thinker learns to hide. He hides the depth of his questions. He hides the sadness that comes from seeing too much. He hides the loneliness of feeling different. He may laugh, work, socialize, and appear normal, but inside there is a private world full of thoughts that rarely find a listener. Over time, this hidden inner life becomes heavy, not because deep thinking is bad, but because depth without expression becomes isolation. And isolation is one of the enemies of happiness. Human beings need connection, but deep thinkers often struggle to connect at the level they need. Small talk feels exhausting. Fake positivity feels empty. Repeated conversations about money, status, gossip, trends, and appearances can feel meaningless. They want conversations about fear, time, love, death, purpose, memory, childhood, regret, dreams, and the strange mystery of being alive. But not everyone wants to go there. Not everyone can go there. So the deep thinker becomes lonely in a crowd. This loneliness is not always physical. It is emotional. It is the feeling that people know your name, your face, your role, but not your inner world. They know what you do, but not what keeps you awake. They know your humor, but not the sadness behind it. They know your achievements, but not the emptiness that achievement failed to remove. And because deep thinkers crave authentic connection, superficial connection can sometimes feel worse than being alone. But there is another reason deep thinkers struggle to be happy. They often carry a powerful sense of contradiction. They see beauty and tragedy at the same time. A sunset is beautiful, but it also reminds them that time is passing. A child's laughter is joyful, but it also reminds them of innocence that will one day be lost. Love feels sacred, but it also exposes the terror of losing someone. Even success can feel strange, because every victory reveals how quickly the mind adapts and wants more. For a deep thinker, nothing is only one thing. Every joy has a shadow. Every beginning contains an ending. Every answer creates another question. This is why their happiness often feels mixed with sadness. Not depression necessarily. Something more subtle. A melancholy awareness. The feeling that life is beautiful because it is temporary, and painful for the same reason. They may be deeply moved by music, art, poetry, old photographs, empty streets, rainy windows, or the look on someone's face when they are trying not to cry. Their sensitivity allows them to feel life intensely. But intensity is not always easy. A person who feels deeply does not just feel joy deeply. He also feels loss deeply, shame deeply, uncertainty deeply, rejection deeply, and the quiet ache of existence deeply. And this emotional intensity can make happiness unstable. A small thing can disturb the entire inner world. One cold reply, one misunderstood sentence, one memory returning without warning, one moment of silence after a conversation. The deep thinker begins to analyze, did I say something wrong? Did they mean that? Why did their tone change? Why do I care so much? Why does this small thing affect me? The mind becomes a courtroom. Every emotion becomes evidence. Every memory becomes a witness. Every fear becomes a prosecutor. And soon, happiness is no longer a natural state. It becomes something that must defend itself against thought. This is one of the cruelest parts of deep thinking. The mind that wants truth can become suspicious of peace. When things are calm, it searches for what might go wrong. When someone loves you, it wonders why. When life improves, it asks how long before it falls apart. When happiness arrives, it does not simply welcome it. It investigates it. Deep thinkers often believe they are protecting themselves by thinking ahead. They prepare for disappointment before it happens. They imagine worst-case scenarios. They rehearse conversations. They analyze patterns. They try to understand people so they will not be hurt by them. But this constant preparation has a cost. It makes the mind live in danger even when the present is safe. This is why deep thinkers may struggle with peace more than pain. Pain makes sense to them. Pain confirms what they already understand about life. But peace feels unfamiliar. Peace feels fragile. Peace feels like something that might disappear the moment they trust it. So they remain alert. And constant alertness is exhausting. Another hidden reason deep thinkers struggle to be happy is that they often have high inner standards. They do not want to waste life. They do not want to live blindly. They do not want to become fake, shallow, cruel, ordinary, or spiritually asleep. They want to be honest with themselves. They want to create something meaningful. They want to love deeply, think clearly, and live with purpose. But this desire for meaning can become pressure. The deep thinker may feel that a normal life is not enough. A normal job, normal routine, normal conversations, normal entertainment, normal goals, all of it may feel too small for the size of the questions inside him. He wants life to matter. He wants his existence to mean something. But the world often demands practical survival, not philosophical fulfillment. So he becomes trapped between two realities. One part of him wants depth, truth, beauty, and purpose. Another part must answer emails, pay bills, make decisions, tolerate boring conversations, and function in a world that rewards speed more than depth. This conflict creates inner fatigue. The soul wants meaning. The world demands performance. And performance can slowly kill happiness. Because deep thinkers are often not just thinking about life. They are thinking about whether they are living correctly. They compare their real life to the life they imagined. They wonder if they are wasting their potential. They feel haunted by unlived versions of themselves, the artist they could have become, the writer they never became, the kind of person they wanted to be, the freer life they dreamed of, the love they lost, the courage they delayed. This creates a painful form of self-awareness. The deep thinker does not only suffer from what happened, he suffers from what could have happened. And what could have been is one of the most dangerous places for the mind to live. Because the past becomes a museum of regrets, the future becomes a theater of fears, and the present becomes a waiting room between the two. This is why deep thinkers must be careful. The mind is powerful, but it is not always wise. It can reveal truth, but it can also create prisons. It can analyze pain, but it can also repeat it. It can search for meaning, but it can also destroy simple joy by demanding that every moment justify its existence. Sometimes happiness is not found by thinking more. Sometimes happiness is found by trusting life enough to stop interrogating it. But this is not easy for a deep thinker, because thinking has often been his survival tool. Maybe he learned early that people were unpredictable. Maybe he had to read moods to feel safe. Maybe he became intelligent because he had to understand what others ignored. Maybe depth was not a luxury. Maybe it was protection. Many deep thinkers were once sensitive children who noticed too much. They saw tension adults pretended was not there. They felt rejection before it was spoken. They understood sadness before they had words for it. They learned to observe, to predict, to analyze, to stay ahead of emotional danger, and as adults they call it personality. But often it began as adaptation. This matters because you cannot simply tell a deep thinker to stop thinking. That is like telling a guard to abandon the gate while he still believes danger is coming. The mind needs to learn safety slowly. It needs to learn that not every silence is rejection. Not every uncertainty is disaster. Not every emotion requires analysis. Not every thought deserves obedience. A deep thinker does not need to become shallow to be happy. He needs to become grounded. Grounded thinking is different from endless thinking. Endless thinking circles around fear. Grounded thinking returns to reality. Endless thinking asks, what if everything goes wrong? Grounded thinking asks, what is actually happening right now? Endless thinking tries to control life through prediction. Grounded thinking accepts that some things cannot be solved in advance. This is where happiness becomes possible again. Not the loud happiness of constant excitement. Not the fake happiness of pretending. Not the shallow happiness of distraction. But a quieter happiness, a deeper happiness. The kind that does not require life to be perfect. The kind that can sit beside sadness without being destroyed by it. The kind that understands pain but still chooses beauty. Deep thinkers do not need a life without questions. They need a life where questions do not consume every breath. They need art. They need silence that heals instead of isolates. They need people who do not mock their depth. They need conversations where they can speak honestly without being reduced to too much. They need work that carries meaning, even if it is small. They need rituals that bring them back into the body. Walking, praying, writing, breathing, creating, touching something real, listening to music without analyzing it. Because the body lives in the present. The mind lives everywhere else. A deep thinker must return to the body again and again. Feel the ground. Feel the breath. Feel the warmth of tea in the hand. Feel sunlight on the face. Feel the ordinary miracle of still being here. Not every moment must become a theory. Not every feeling must become a story. Sometimes peace begins when the mind stops turning life into a problem. But there is something else deep thinkers must understand. Happiness is not the absence of depth. It is the integration of depth. The goal is not to become someone who never questions life. The goal is to stop using questions as weapons against yourself. Ask deep questions, but do not let them steal your ability to live. Seek truth, but do not forget tenderness. Understand the darkness, but do not worship it. Notice the sadness in life, but also notice the bread on the table, the friend who stayed, the song that found you at the right time, the morning that arrived even after your worst night. Deep thinkers often fear that happiness will make them less intelligent, less serious, less aware, as if joy belongs only to people who do not understand life. But this is not true. There is a form of joy that comes after understanding, a mature joy. A joy that has seen enough suffering to stop taking small things for granted. A joy that does not deny death, but loves life more because of it. A joy that knows everything is temporary and instead of becoming numb, becomes grateful. This kind of happiness is not childish. It is courageous. Because when you know life is uncertain and you still love, that is courage. When you know people can leave and you still open your heart, that is courage. When you know success will not save you completely and you still build, that is courage. When you know the world is imperfect and you still create beauty, that is courage. Maybe deep thinkers struggle to be happy because they are trying to find a happiness that cannot be broken. A happiness beyond loss, beyond change, beyond disappointment, beyond time. But human happiness is not like that. Human happiness is fragile. It visits, it moves, it changes shape. You cannot possess it forever. You can only meet it when it comes and stop ruining it by demanding that it stay. A deep thinker must learn to let happiness be temporary without calling it meaningless. A conversation can be temporary and still matter. A friendship can change and still have been real. A moment of peace can pass and still be precious. A dream can fail and still teach you something. A life can be uncertain and still be worth living. This is the wisdom deep thinkers need. Most meaning does not require permanence. The fact that something ends does not mean it was empty. The fact that happiness fades does not mean it was fake. The fact that love can hurt does not mean love is foolish. The fact that life cannot be fully understood does not mean life cannot be deeply lived. At some point, the deep thinker has to make peace with mystery. Not every question has an answer. Not every wound has a perfect explanation. Not every person will understand you. Not every feeling can be solved. Some things must be carried gently, not conquered intellectually. And maybe this is where happiness begins. Not in finally understanding everything, but in no longer needing to. There is a strange freedom in accepting that life will always remain partly unknown. You do not have to solve existence before you enjoy your breakfast. You do not have to understand the entire human condition before you laugh with someone you love. You do not have to become perfectly healed before you allow yourself a peaceful evening. You are allowed to be a deep thinker and still enjoy simple things. You are allowed to know the world is painful and still smile. You are allowed to carry sadness and still build a good life. You are allowed to think deeply without turning every thought into a cage. Because the truth is, deep thinkers are not unhappy because they think. They are unhappy when thinking disconnects them from living. They are unhappy when awareness becomes isolation. They are unhappy when meaning becomes pressure. They are unhappy when the mind tries to protect the heart by never letting it rest. But the same depth that creates suffering can also create extraordinary beauty. Deep thinkers can love with rare understanding. They can create art that makes others feel seen. They can notice quiet details that most people miss. They can offer compassion because they understand hidden pain. They can turn suffering into wisdom. They can find meaning in places others overlook. Their depth is not a curse when it is connected to life. It becomes a gift. So maybe the question is not, why do deep thinkers struggle to be happy? Maybe the deeper question is, what kind of happiness is worthy of a deep thinker? Not the happiness of denial, not the happiness of distraction, not the happiness of pretending everything is fine, but the happiness of presence, the happiness of meaning, the happiness of honest connection, the happiness of creating something real, the happiness of accepting that life is both beautiful and painful and choosing not to abandon either truth. A deep thinker will never be happy in the same way a careless person is happy. And that is not a failure. Their happiness may be quieter, slower, more private. It may come through understanding, not excitement, through peace, not noise, through one honest conversation, one meaningful sentence, one night of real silence, one moment where the mind finally softens and says, "This is enough." And maybe that is the ending they need. Not a life without sadness, not a mind without questions, not a heart without fear, but a soul that can sit in the middle of all of it and still choose to live. Because deep thinkers do not need to escape their depth. They need to stop drowning in it. They need to turn depth into wisdom, sensitivity into compassion, loneliness into creation, and awareness into presence. And when they do, they may discover something surprising. Happiness was never found by becoming less deep. It was found by becoming deep enough to stop fighting life.